Weird science is the revolution. Weird science is the revolution.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to what I'd like to call it Sundays with Sully. That's what I'll call this, as long as you're here with me doing it. But here we are with our Sunday morning comic talk. A lot of people love when you call them the floppies. And also the funny books. That was one of the things. They love you saying that they are the funny books, and here we are. And actually, some of the books this week were kind of funny. I'm telling you, by the end,
some of them were fun, man. Yeah, I like fun.
We have a song that we were going to play at the beginning here. We didn't quite do it because there's some F-bombs in it, and it's Batman AF is what I'd like to call it. We'll play it at the end, though. We'll be able to do. But I think that one of the funniest things that I've seen in quite some time is Batman punning a baby off of a yacht. A baby with a crazy 8-ball helmet. I said when we were reviewing it on Friday night, the idea that it's a Twi'lek baby brandishing a knife. And I did end up seeing a bunch of people like, oh, my God, that's not Batman. He punted a baby. I'm like, I don't even know if that thing's a baby. I have no idea. You know what I mean? That thing is crazy, though. It made me laugh. It made me laugh for so long. Yeah. Also, it wasn't deceiving how much I laughed. I thought it was so funny. But here we are. And this is kind of melded into the idea of the thing I wanted to do with you that a bunch of people do. You do it as well, having a positive show and having something where we just kind of get together. And it's almost like, hey, we might bring up some things we might not love or whatever, but I'd rather concentrate on some good things and what it, you know what I mean? And
so all of you Rachel Zegler haters and you 50-year-old grown men bitching about Snow White, well, there's plenty of other channels out there.
That is true. That is true. And I ended up seeing something, and I'm like, I'm on Twitter, and all of a sudden I see, I'm like, oh, that girl kind of looks like she's dressed up as Snow White. And then I'm like, oh, God, they hate her. Like, I didn't know how much hate there was with this thing going on. I was like, holy moly.
I dated a Latina for 4 years. I was 31. She was 22, and we met 20 years ago. And it was at a bar, at a rock show, and I was looking good. And, I snagged a hot chick, and we went out for 4 years. But she's a Latina. She's from Texas. She's fourth generation Mexican-American. So when I see Rachel Zegler, especially at that age, she reminds me of my ex. And Latinas are very spicy, very fierce,
very spicy,
very caliente. And so when I look at Rachel Zegler, all I see is the attributes of a strong Latino woman. And but also remember, she's half Latina, half Polish.
Oh,
and nobody takes into consideration her Polish ancestry.
Nobody goes with the Polish.
Talking about this Germanic myth.
Yeah.
It's dude, she's half Polish. That's got to matter.
I will tell you one thing. When we were growing up, there was a lot more Polish jokes going around. Yeah. I haven't heard many people like, hey, did you hear this one? They're the worst. But here we are. Yeah, that's all it was. That's all I kept hearing. I'm like, oh, and then I actually realized, I think that half of my friends are Polish, and I never realized. So, as a kid, you don't really ask. Like, hey,
I hope they're tuning in.
Hey,
why
maybe
did the
they
Polish
are.
Submarine sink.
Yes, exactly.
The
screen door.
Or like
the there you go. You have there. Boom.
Hey, there we are.
It's like, well, why did the Polish javelin team have to leave the matches because they elected to receive?
Oh, jeez.
I have those. I also have a lot of leopard jokes if people are into those. I mean, we'll get to those later. But here we are to talk some comics. And basically, the big thing, though, pretty good week. I actually had a lot of fun with a lot of books, and I can't say that often. Now, I'll say that that's not really on the Marvel side of things. Marvel had a couple of zingers. But in general, there were a bunch of, I haven't even finished reading all of them, but even say DC, for our podcast, we weren't going to discuss the Sonic book. And at the last second, one guy said, hey, you want to talk about it? I'm like, yeah, I haven't played Sonic or whatever, and I haven't watched the movies or anything like that. So I'm like, okay, and we get into it, and it was one of my favorite books this week. I loved it.
Really?
I thought,
good.
It was great. It was really good. And I say to some people, because a lot of other people talked to me about it and said, oh, my God, I didn't realize this would be so fun or it's so cool.
Like the Godzilla book. Sometimes all you need is just an adventure and your heroes that are out of the Style Guide Bible at that time. Something reliable, iconic, Everyone's speaking in character. It's easy to get into. You know Superman, you know Wonder Woman, you know the Flash, and of course Flash is gonna race Sonic.
Oh yeah, he's gonna race Sonic, and then of
That's
course
pretty fun.
Knuckles, and it was great. It was really fun, and there was a really good Batman moment. Not as good as punning a baby, but it was still like one of my favorite moments where he's talking with Shadow and things like that. And we end up talking about it on our podcast. And this week I ended up I'm exhausted right now. You pick me up. You pick my spirit up, Sully.
Yes,
You're
cheer me
my
up.
spirit animal, a drunken South Boston Irishman. Because of the deal.
McKinley is dead. McCormick, we don't know it.
Speaking of which,
McKinley don't know it.
I'm glad that you survived the St. Patrick's
St.
Day.
Patty's
You actually
Day.
went through, and and
we did it again.
You do send me pictures of drinks and food that you had gone out, and you said you couldn't drink too much of what you had going down, but it still
More
looked
than
pretty
two,
good.
You're asking for. I mean, I'll literally be suffering on Wes's show. So that's why I stopped drinking on Friday nights, because it's like I'm committed to Wes's show.
You were a professional.
Well, I feel better the less I drink. I love getting drunk, but I know what that feels like.
Yeah. I'm with you. I haven't really drank since college, and that was quite some time ago. But I kind of did enough for my life at that point in a band. Anytime I get, it doesn't matter what. If somebody says, "Hey, I'll give you free shoelaces," I will grab 700 pairs of shoelaces. So we got free drinks, and I kind of went nuts with that.
Getting visions of young John Constantine and mucous membrane.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. It was trouble.
Did you read those older?
Oh yeah, I've had some of the things.
Man.
Again, I'm more new to comics than you, but I have gone back and read some of the things. So I'm not really the dark side of things. More of a fan. I'm more of a fan of like Nightwing and that sort of thing. He's my favorite character, Dick Grayson. But
good, he's my favorite character too. That's
great.
And
I always say, when people ask me like, "What's your favorite character?" I do kind of say, "Well, not," and then I have to back up. It's actually Dick Grayson, all iterations.
Yeah,
I love.
It's like
Dick.
that.
I love
Johns
Dick. I just have to tell you, I can't get enough of him. Oh my goodness.
Like there's a scene in Jeff Johns' Infinite Crisis where Batman comes to Nightwing, and Nightwing's in sorrow because Bloodhaven had just been nuked by chemo. And but he was like, "Dick, I need your help. Everyone trusts you. They don't trust me. Like, you're the glue that keeps the heroes together." And he's right. Yeah, I love that about Dick Grayson. He's a great character.
I love him. I always did, and he was one of the reasons why I wanted to start reading comics even later in life. But so this week I thought there was a bunch of pretty cool books. Again, a lot of the things that go on, people really tend nowadays to go indie and really point that out. But I didn't read Carnage, the first issue. And that's we're going to be talking about, by the way. We'll be talking about Carnage and then a little bit of a discussion of the new Asgard book. I didn't even know if you had any sort of, background with Carnage, or not Carnage, with Asgard. But I just, it's one of those. Same here. I did really like it at one point. I was more of a Redwall guy book-wise. And it kind of tends to, you have that thing. And most people, when they bring up Asgard, they also bring up Redwall, which is kind of makes sense. But Carnage... the whole play of that is that I didn't read the first issue. I ended up kind of skipping it. And I'll tell you, it's mainly because I've had enough of symbiotes. I have, symbiote sickness or whatever it would be called, because there were so many crazy books. And when you had Donny Cates doing the Venom, the Eddie Brock Venom, I was really into it. I really liked the story, him and Dylan. Then you get finally to that King in Black and Null, and it kind of waited too long to get there. But then once it got there, it got so bloated with these events and things like that. But then once Donny Cates left it and you ended up having Al Ewing and Ram V, I tried to stick with it. I could not do whatever. I could not even stand it. And recently, I don't know if you heard the interview with Brian Hitch, where he was, I think it was Word Bubble. He was talking about the idea of when he did Venom, he ended up where neither Al Ewing or Ram V ever talked to him, never said a word. They never called him, never, nothing. And he seemed really offended by it. Like the idea, they didn't even, when it was done, like thank him or say like, "Hey, this is that," and "Hey, do this." And he's like, it was the worst. He said it was one of the worst things going. Even Jonathan Hickman and the stuff with the Ultimate Invasion, he said like they talked one time and then, just went. And he said that with the Ghost Machine stuff, and I really do like Redcoat, he said that it's really refreshing that him and Jeff Johns kind of collaborate like old
Hmm.
school. They actually, are really into it together to do the stuff, which is really, really cool. And yeah, and now
Yeah,
he
I mean,
also
Jeff's
has,
always had really robust relationships
yeah,
with his pencilers. Like if it's Ethan, if it's Ivan Reese,
yep,
like two of my just those are the first two that popped in my head because I'm a Green Lantern fan,
yeah, yeah, those are big.
but just like everyone running the gamut too. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Infinite Crisis. Like
Hmm.
that Phil Jimenez was just so amazing in that book.
Yeah, yeah,
Jeez.
yeah. And again, I mean, first up, like the Marvel method, that's one thing. That's one
Right.
thing to be like, hey, I'll do the art and go back and collaborate that way. But to just do a whole run of a book and never once, even have you don't even call the person or
Really?
or do that. Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not
it's
tuned into the
crazy.
symbiote stuff. I
Yeah.
missed Donny Cates' King in Black run. I didn't know that Ram V touched
Oh
Venom.
yeah, yeah. He was there. They had like a dual thing going on back and forth with him and Al Ewing.
Really?
And I'm not a real big Al Ewing fan, and I'm not a
Right.
big Ram V fan at
I'm a bigger
times.
Ram V
Yeah, I
fan.
probably
And
am too. But again, I like a lot of his indie stuff more than say,
yeah,
the big
like
two
Layla
stuff. And
Starr and
yeah, like that, and even
Rare
Dawn Runner.
Flavors. Dawn Runner,
Recently, I
yeah.
really liked. So you end up where the whole play though is like, boy, it didn't put a good light in say, an Al Ewing or a Ram V. I don't know why they wouldn't get a hold of him because
Hmm.
Brian Hitch is big, the big artist. You might want to, reach out and just talk to him a
Yeah.
little. And also, if you read if people listening, they read that, especially Al Ewing stuff, it was wacky. I'm telling you, I don't even know if I'd have the script and even know what the hell to draw because we're in the God Garden, we're doing this. But I'm telling you, I completely bailed on all of the Venom stuff.
Uh-huh.
And then you had that summer of Venom, summer of symbiotes, and I really didn't get involved. So each time a new symbiote book comes out, I end up kind of like antsy, like, yeah, I'll wait and see. I do that. But usually with me, if I don't read the first, I'm done. I won't like, oh, I'll go back until somebody tells me it's good. And you're
Hmm.
one of the people who told me that it's really good, that it's a decent
I'm
book, that it's good
Yeah, I
to
walked into it naked, man. I mean,
Oh
I had
my.
no expectations. Well, hello. At
How
least
dare you?
I had a symbiote to cover my privates.
Exactly.
So
Maybe
it's
a
like
big
growing a new
symbiote.
foreskin.
There you go, the King in Black, indeed. So you
My,
end
my,
up where all that, like, again, and it's weird that you didn't read the Donny Cates stuff because that was the
yeah,
big stuff, but now you're just kind of reading just about everything.
wandering into it. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
but I do know a bit being a Spider-Man fan, and I know
Mhm.
that Carnage is a spawn of Venom,
Mhm.
and that Eddie Brock and Carnage and Eddie Brock and Cletus never got along.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the thing with this, you kind of push that aside a little bit because of the way Carnage is now,
Yeah.
which
So
I'll ask you now, do you like that? Because I don't. I like to just have Cletus go for it, like
it's
Carnage.
interesting
This is
because
interesting to have a different play and have Eddie here,
yeah,
right? But I kind of miss the classic.
it reminds me of that Sidney Poitier movie where he's handcuffed to Tony Curtis and they're
Mm-hmm.
escaping in the
Yeah,
prison
yeah.
and they hate each other, but they're handcuffed. They have to escape together. They need to rely on each other. What was the name of
I
that
believe
movie?
that was Police Academy 5. I think that's what it was. Police Academy in Moscow. That's what that one was called back in the
Citizens on
day.
Patrol was at 8, right?
That was. I'm telling you. I think that might have been 15. The idea of those movies, I'm really shocked we don't have like 7 each year again. But yeah, I can't remember, but I do know what you're talking
It had
about.
a cartoon and action figures too, man.
I love those like combo movies like that with like Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor are the greatest. Those
Yeah,
deals
Silver
are so
Streak was
fun.
just
I remember Silver Streak I saw on
Mhm.
HBO as a kid, and I shouldn't have been watching it. It was like so
No.
fun to watch it and go, oh my goodness, I shouldn't be watching this thing. But yeah, so the whole thing though is weird because Venom, it was cute. It was big. Donny Cates' Venom was really big, and it was one of
People
those
loved
books.
it. Yeah.
When I think back at the bit, and that's when I kind of started doing our Marvel podcast. So we were just reading everything and reviewing it. But the Donny Cates stuff, that was like along the lines of the Al Ewing Immortal Hulk. Like those were the
Okay.
big books that they're like, oh my God, these things are doing way better than what normally, and people are really hooking into it. And then Donny Cates kind of going a little, whatever, wackadoo and going off. I think that people almost forget a bit about that run with
Did
him and
Al
Dylan.
Ewing have to come in? Was he the one that came in to replace Donny Cates? Because I heard Cates disappeared off of
He did. It
Venom
was already
PDQ
done.
with his
It
stuff.
kind of ended the whole thing in the King in Black, and then he moved on, and he was doing. It was weird because then he started doing Hulk, and then Al Ewing started doing Venom. It's like they just traded books. But then that's when Donny Cates stuff started going down. And I like Donny Cates. I think he's a really, really good writer. It's just he has a lot of personal problems that are, demons, we'd say, and causing some problems there. But I hear that he's coming back in some sort of way. Yeah, and he had problems with his wife, and it seemed like that really got to him.
He seemed to be one of the rock stars of comics.
Yeah.
We've had like Grant Morrison, Neil Gaiman, Warren Ellis. What do they all have in common? Well, they get into trouble because they think they're rock stars.
Yeah. And so one of the things, though, that's a shame because he's somewhat, new. He had done some things, and he had done a couple of indie things that I actually really did like. And then from there, he was elevated. I mean, he was like a comic rock star, but it was one of those where people sit and say, still, who are the big new writers? Now, right now, it's, say, Jeremy Adams. But for every Jeremy Adams, there's a Tim Sheridan. And they are good friends.
They're best friends.
Yeah,
they sit next to each other at the
They are. They're best friends. And
if it's a Jeremy, I give Tim side eye.
Yeah, you give him the stink eye. You feel bad. You're like, yeah.
But I'm not even on Twitter anymore. Why are you upset about that,
exactly.
Philly? Fuck off.
He's all pleading with you. You're like, well, what's going on, Sully? But yeah, but Donny Cates was one of those newer. I hate to say new because sometimes you'll get people and they'll be like, oh my God, these new writers, Lansing and Kelly. I'm like, Lansing and Kelly, they've been doing this for like 15 years. Like
Zeb Wells has been around for 20 years. Where have you been?
Zeb Wells or even Jed McKay's been around longer than some people realize. But so it's a shame. But that's kind of that was my entry point. And even in the chat, Full Metal 737 was talking about a Carnage run a few years ago when he was hunting gods, and there was a detective cop guy, and that was pretty cool. I remember reading some of that. But the idea, like, I kind of lost track of the Venom stuff. So when something like this comes out, not that I assume, it ties in everything, but I remember at one point, I mean, I really was symbioted out of the symbiote summer. I had enough. And so this is kind of dipping back in with this, book. And I'm glad that I did. I'm really glad that we ended up and we decided to talk about this because I caught up, and it's good. I'm not going to say that it's one of those, books that I thought it was just going to be balls to the wall. Oh my God, here it is. Eddie's doing this. And I expected Eddie would be trying to stop the symbiote, the Carnage symbiote, from doing bad things. But I expected it really to be just over the top action. And I might have been fine with that, but this actually got me in a, kind of a more subdued deal that I didn't see kind of coming. But I'll give you the credits as soon as I can load this deal up, and then we'll jump into it. And again, it's one of those books that if you aren't reading it, this is only the second issue. You can certainly just jump in.
That Jim shared with me Venom War as it was unfolding. So I read every issue of Venom War in all the tie-ins, all the one-shots. And as I said, like, I've never been a Venomverse kind of fan or a reader. And so I'm coming into this, like I said, naked, completely, just new. And so Venom War was easy to follow. Sure, I understood all the moving pieces. I always feel bad for Marvel Manhattan because didn't they just get over like Orcus and Blood Hunt, and now they got. This is all happening within months.
Even that, and it is funny because a lot of the books, they'll always go and center on the idea of, you Earthlings, everything goes through you, Earth. No, it's New York, and it's Manhattan. And in that, even in, say, I mean, some people will roll their eyes when I say I read this, and I don't know that you had, but the Captain Marvel run of Kelly Thompson, I swear to God, like every other issue, there was a bubble around, Central Park, and then there was all this, everything goes down there. It's always problems. Yeah, and Mark Jager said that Donny Cates definitely was a rock star. He was. The thing is, he even had that play where he kind of looked the part, too, and played it, and he kind of had that edgy kind of play, but that edginess got
fingernails are black, and his whole room is black. How much more black can this be? I'm ripping off Henry Rollins right now.
Darkness, my only friend.
Pain. Nobody knows
He's
the
got
pain
his
that I
emo
know.
journal going. Again, though, I really liked him, and when the things went down, there were so many rumors swirling around things, and the idea that I hear now he like crashed a boat.
Uh-huh.
and did wacky stuff, like really wacky stuff. But it seems like he's getting it back together, and maybe, just maybe, we'll see him on, say, an Absolute book at DC. Or I think that you can't bring him back into something huge, because it would be like Lindsay Lohan back in the day.
Uh-huh.
You have problems because you have to pay that insurance in case she goes wacko and ODs or something.
Like
you know?
Lori Wilson.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that it? Lori Petty.
Lori Petty. Yeah, exactly. You have to make
Girl.
sure. Yeah, Tank Girl.
Dude.
I like Tank Girl. Nobody likes the soundtrack of Tank Girl was awesome.
Her insurance premiums made her unhireable.
Yeah,
she was like,
yeah, that happens. It happened to Robert Downey Jr. and he was able to turn around. So that's pretty cool. But here we go.
Yes.
And you want to hear the weirdest thing about this Carnage book?
What's the weirdest thing about
I
this
read
Carnage
through
book,
it
Jim?
and actually did not know who wrote it, and didn't check. And about halfway through, because again, I'm just like catching up. And also, to give you the time frame, you had ended up getting a hold of me and said, "Hey, when are we going to do this?" And I'm like, "Oh crap,
shit!"
I knew I had to read. I had to read the things, but I was doing other things. I'm feeding my dog. I'm like, I better get to this because we're starting in 20 minutes. I'm like getting in, and so halfway through, I thought, oh, this feels familiar. The writer. And I never did check, so now I see that it is Charles Soule. Somebody who I'm back and forth with. I'm not the biggest of Charles Soule fans, and I think that what Charles, this might be wrong, but the idea for me with Charles Soule, it always feels like he's a good writer. He's a technical writer. He's a very smart guy. He's a lawyer. All that stuff wrapped up in the one. But sometimes I don't feel like he has like the imagination that I need. But sometimes he does. That's the thing. That what was it, like a 10 Trillion Genies book? That was really cool. And but I'm kind of hit or miss with him. Sometimes it kind of gets me.
He writes some decent Star Wars and the new Marvel
the Darth
Disney
Vader
canon.
stuff and all that is really good. Like he has things, but sometimes he tends to bore me. And this didn't bore me, so I'm glad. And maybe it's one of those. Maybe I should not look at the writer before I read. Maybe I have some predispositions. I have a vendetta or something, but it is Charles
If I
Soule.
did that, I would end up buying crap from people that's blocked me on social media.
Yeah, you can't.
I don't want anything to do with
You're
those.
on it. You're on the deal. I love the list. It's funny because
I have to. It's a filter I use.
when we do our pod, mainly the DC show, that's the one that usually has me blocked a lot. No, I'll even say a lot of the blocking and things like that was from years ago. I used to be a little more of a loose cannon. I used to yell things that people would get offended by, but end up where if we do the credits and just say as we go, it's like, hey, written by Charles Soule, blocked us. And I just do that. And then I realize there are books where if I do that, the whole creative team has blocked us. I'm like, is this like a conspiracy or something? Like, why me? I'm not that bad a guy, but art by Jesus Saez. And you said that you would have some comments on the art. Obviously.
Yeah, the art is a strength here. And I like to use this. Jim knows I say this a lot, but a really good artist can elevate a mediocre story. Yeah, especially in this medium.
Yep.
And
I'm more of a story guy. I know that this has come up on the aficionados a lot. The idea of, could you read a really crappy story? This is the funny thing, and I'll give you my answer. Can you read a crappy story with great art more than a great story with crappy art? And my answer is, I kind of want both being good. The idea, I know, it's like a Sophie's choice here that I don't want to make, because really in my mind, both the writing and the art, there's no reason why anybody should be hired that sucks. And I don't get it. Like the idea of them scrapping the bottom of the barrel or whatever. But for the most part, I do go story. You're an art guy, though. You're really more with art.
I love art. Yeah. But that also comes with just like Renaissance art, Dutch masters art, just like all the different impressionist art. Just like I like art. And this is a nice, I love art, but I know a lot about art, but I love comics. So that's, but comics though, like I grew up in the Bronze Age. So there was always we come from a tradition of bad art and bad story. Yeah. And then by
what
80s,
Sully means, he grew up in the medieval times. That had nothing to do with comics. He's just a really old guy.
The Bronze Age.
Oh my goodness. But so again, maybe that's the reason why I'm more story. Maybe it's because I haven't had enough experience.
We're a little jaded, I think. I think we're a little spoiled because we forget that we literally come from pulpy dime store fiction. And quite literally. The advent of good story and good art, I think that came about in the early 80s. And especially with, I think that the big inciting incident was Marvel Man. in England with
Okay.
Alan Moore
Yep.
in
Yeah.
'81, and stories getting dark and serious.
Yeah.
And then came this whole new crop of comics artists like Brian Bolland, just in the whole. There was
Yeah,
a
the
whole
whole
second,
deal.
the
And
whole
you say
British
that.
invasion.
I was going to bring up the idea too that if you went through, say, the '90s when it became the stars were the art. I mean, that was the
There we
artists
go.
were the stars of the deal, and I didn't go through that. And I think even when I would talk to Eric before he left me hanging, the idea that he was, a big guy in the '90s, a big '90s guy. So a lot of the things that he does end up bringing up is the art. But then when I talk to people about it, what you usually get though is like I keep saying. I go story wise, but the story, that's what you have. Like, oh, what are the best stories? You don't have a lot of people saying, oh my God, I'm going to go reread that whole run because the art was great and the story sucked. But there are people when they talk about it, it's just in general, like, oh my God, the art for that was incredible. Oh, Joe Midori was awesome. This is Eric talking to me a lot. He loved Joe Midori. Yeah, he would always go on. And I would go and check out some things. But again, I'm more a story guy.
Man. Just like, oh
yeah.
my God. I love that guy's art. It's so cartoony, and then so a lot of muscle and form,
a lot of
and
muscle.
pose.
Yeah,
fucking love that.
And
shit.
Speaking of which, we will be getting Hush 2 this week, so we'll be getting a lot of maybe sexy butts and boobs because on our Patreon we've been going through the original Hush, and we're going to finish actually today, so right on time. I didn't know if we were going to quite coordinate it, but it did work out. But in that with the Jim Lee art. Jim Lee's art's great. It's so detailed, all the things going on. But boy, that guy can draw butts and boobs. That's everything. Is like any character that shows up. Catwoman, obviously, being a lot in Hush. Like she comes in, and I'm like, why does she cut? Like she's posing. She knows somebody's watching. She's posing off. I'm like, holy moly! And I'm not complaining because it looked good. It looks really good. And Mark Jager said in the chat too, the idea of Jason Fabach is an artist that a lot of people will go and read whatever is going on. But that's the thing, isn't it great when you have something like Rook Exodus where the book is great too. That's what I like. But we'll get to Carnage here. I think that Mouse Guard's going to get really pushed to the side as a deal because here we go, written by Charles Soule, Jesus Saez on art, colors by Matt Hollinsworth, and VC's Joe Sabino on letters, and it's cool. Again, I read the first issue, and so going into it, I thought the first issue was really, really good. I'm going to tell you, I think this issue is a little bit down from the first issue, but only slightly. It's because of the pacing, but I get what's happening. Correct. And Charles Soule is giving you, like a serial killer vibe in this, and kind of a
it's like police. Police procedural. You ever watch Mindhunter on Netflix?
I didn't, but my wife did. I heard it secondhand.
That first season was amazing. I think it kind of happened with all those shows, but the second season it got a bit too WOKE.
Well, for me,
WOKE.
For me, Mindhunter, I thought it was like, okay, that's a rogue detective that's in a wheelchair that has mind powers, and he ends up, going and solving crimes in space, baby. I'm not a big TV guy, so when I hear things in the distance and I hear my wife gasping and things like that, she did like it. But again, I don't know about the second season because I think she kind of bailed on that as well.
But that kind of police procedural show, it's like we have a new status quo. So Eddie he originally, what was his first job? The first thing he worked for the Bugle. He was Peter Parker's rival.
He's an investigative reporter and ended up having problems because he was dropping stories, and then they kind of got finagled that they weren't real and whatever, and that ended up disgracing him. That's his anger that ends up where
Peter helped get him fired because
exactly,
or exposed him. For embellishing or just like downright making stuff up. We would call it clickbait these days, but
he was good at it. But then and then he goes to off himself a bit. He goes to Prey, and that's where he gets the Venom deal, and it's a cool story, and it's one of those where a lot of people with the idea of villains can't like redeem or villains can't. I do like the continuing thing with Eddie because it's not like Eddie's really like he's morally good, but it's not like he's not Superman, he's not Spider-Man. He has that gray area or dark area, which I like, which works with this.
So this is a lot now. Like I never watched it, but I know all kind of about it. This is Eddie Brock through Dexter.
Yeah.
Because he makes a deal with Carnage that he can't survive without a symbiote, and Carnage needs a human host.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like I said about Sidney Poitier and Tony Curtis handcuffed and escaping the prison, and they need each other to live, literally.
Yeah.
So Eddie agrees that we're only going to eat serial killers.
Yeah, and it is.
Like
it
Dexter,
is Dexter.
you know?
It's like Dexter, but it works, and the way that it works is what I'll give Charles Soule, who I said has no imagination, which isn't really fair. The idea of being clever or actually thinking this through, where a lot of times these books where, say, a David P. post, that he's doing great on Space Ghost. I'm not going to deny that. But when he ended up doing the Joe Garrison Punisher, and that seemed the book, we want to Punisher book, we're going to try to get something going. And then when he did it, it just wasn't clever. He didn't sit there and think of the idea of how can I make this work? Because people are going to be against it. Let's make it work within the deal. But the idea where they come to Charles Soule and say, okay, Eddie, Brock, Carnage. Well, it's not just the idea of thinking, okay, well, Eddie does this, this, and this. There's a point right here with Carnage that it's ripe for the picking to do this book because Carnage isn't quite Carnage. Can't really do as much. And like you said, they need each other. But the idea of it is also that the minute that one of them can gain the little bit, it's like 50-50 right now. Eddie buys a little bit more stock. He's kicking Carnage off the board of directors, vice versa. Carnage just wants to, and even Eddie spells it out in this, which I thought was really good. The idea where they have to kill serial killers. This is like the Dexter, as you said, are really bad people. But the problem is while that's going, it's a recruiting drive for Carnage to try to figure out if he wants somebody else that's better than Eddie. So with that
more
deal,
suited for him.
so if he, and what is, I get the idea, not really the lifelong Carnage fan. He kind of likes serial killers. He kind of likes to jump in there. He's looking for a replacement again, still for Cletus. All that stuff that was in
the placeholder until we finally get Cletus. And
and the Ram V part of the Venom when Al Ewing and Ram V went, it was very similar to that. He ended up, this guy who was obsessed with Carnage. I want to be Carnage, and you're not good enough. That was okay, but this I like. I like the idea that at any point Eddie says, "Snap of a finger, I'm dead. I need this," and it kind of goes back to when he was Venom, and then that got all wacky of finding out he wasn't sick. But the idea of all this going is the play of Carnage. At any point, you got to watch out if you're Eddie, because if you find somebody too good then you're dead, because he's going to jump to that person. And not only that, Eddie plays the game, says, "I did this because I know I'm better suited. I was Venom. I know what goes on with these symbiotes. I think I can control them." There's no way that a serial killer that he jumps into is going to care about that or be controlled. They're not going to have any sort of way to stop Carnage or Carnage stop them. They're just going to be, a match made in hell, I guess.
In hell.
Because
bloody hell.
It's really, really cool. And this is the deal: is that Muhammad in the chat said that Eddie Brock is Carnage and Paul is Venom, and he's like he's cheering for Carnage at this point. I would say,
That'd be great.
Yeah. I mean, first off, if you want to get somebody who you should kill, go right after Paul. Just imagine Carnage kills Paul. Carnage becomes the biggest hero that Marvel has ever had. They'll have to make
put him over.
It would be the craziest thing. Everybody would be going nuts with it. It'd be so great. But in this, though, we kind of jumped ahead with some of the things, but you do have this investigation because of this plane crash. And
because that's what Eddie's doing for a living. He's got a new status quo. So what is Eddie doing? He's no longer the King in Black. He's no longer on some kind of god garden. He's back on Earth. Yeah. And he's got to somehow maybe reunite and fix his relationship with his teenage son.
Yep, Dylan.
He's got to
who hates Paul, by the way. We'll throw that in as well, so they may be able to team up. He can't stand Paul.
So Eddie's doing what he that's his trade. He's an investigator again. He's working for a podcast called Red Ones with Bailey Bushkin.
Yeah, imagine that.
But he's using it as a cover to go and find these serial killers that Carnage can eat.
Yeah, and it's a really cool idea. And on surface level, Dexter, we said it.
Yeah,
but when you think about the character and you think about Carnage and where they're at and all those little layers, it's actually real. Like I want to say clever, but it's smart. And again, Charles Soule is smart. And I
This is a
said,
good, yeah.
Charles Soule knows how to write a comic. He goes the concept. It's just sometimes it just doesn't grab me as much. And this actually did. It actually grabbed me in these 2 issues. That I think it's one of the better books. And we hadn't been talking about this on our regular Marvel podcast again, because I was just like, it's just another one of these books. And we do have, I mean, it does play off when you hear it. The mouthfeel of it is, new name, old character type deal. Oh, Eddie Brock's now Carnage. Oh, Elektra is Daredevil, and this is that. Paul is Venom. Like all these things going. It's just there's so many of them that hit you that you kind of have to wade through them and grab them. And this is good, and it is more like laid back, subtle, because that's what's happening. You said Eddie is trying to find these guys. He's using the podcast. He's using his investigative skills, and he walks in to the Detroit precinct and does the classic of, I want to turn myself in. Okay, like,
I'm a killer.
What did you do? I like that he says he's a killer and not a murderer. I don't know if that's like a slight little difference, because I think in my mind, a murderer is basically saying that you're fully guilty. The killer almost feels like you're saying like, I killed some people, but they deserve it. It was kind of that little play. But while that's going on, you end up having Carnage talking to him in his head. And if somebody just jumped into this issue, you could certainly skip the first issue and jump in. Why do that? It's just one issue, but you get it right away. I mean, it's very simply put. You don't have to be clever with the idea of Carnage. You have the red word bubbles, and you realize Carnage can't really do much here. Like Carnage is more of a voice, because some of these things that it ends up saying to Eddie, and Eddie's just like, shut up, whatever.
Yeah.
It's very Venom-esque with it, but Carnage usually is a little more like, hands-on and would try to direct everything, but it's there. Eddie is in control. But
he's like is a veteran symbiote wielder, probably the most veteran in the Marvel universe, being the human host for these ghastly things, dealing with their inner voice and their suggestions, but knowing like if you lose control, they take control.
And that's what I really like the play where you have a book of Carnage, and there is a hero in it, and the hero is Eddie trying to keep Carnage from doing really bad things, but still killing. I mean, you still shouldn't kill people, even the worst of people, but you got to kind of make do with what you got. And that's what they kind of got going here. The idea that, Eddie and Carnage, so he's trying to get the thing, and you go in and there's this detective that he wants to see. And I was like, what's this all about?
I'll only talk to this guy.
Yeah, this Chuck Brentwood. Get me Chuck Brentwood now.
I want Chuck Brentwood now.
I got Alpo undies, and it's a dog-eat-dog world. So he gets him. These other guys, I like the play, though, because, again, Charles Soule is a lawyer. So the idea when you go in, and he already said, listen, I'm a killer. And they go, hey, do you want your rights or whatever? And it's like, I already told you. I'm willingly here. I want to tell you what's going on, but I have to speak to this Brentwood. And they play it off. It really plays off like any sort of thing, little hearing my wife watch, like CSI or, those sort of things where it's like, like he's busy. You can just tell us. We'll pass on the word. It's like, no, I want this. No. And then I realize, I'm telling you, at this point, I'm such a dummy. I'm like, what's going on? Oh, this Brentwood's not good. Like he wants to get him here. But then I thought, boy, maybe find out where this Brentwood lives and go to his house, not in the precinct. It's an odd play, but he's going to get this Brentwood, and we do find out that it is the Bushwhacker. We will find out that it's that, but it's a cool little play to get to that. I thought it was Bush with Bill from back in the day, but it wasn't. So you end up, even that though, while that's going on, and this Brentwood comes, you get a really cool way of through this, and it's the situation is natural enough where Eddie's going to tell this story about what's happening with him with Carnage, and then you're like, why is he telling him? Like, this is a weird play. And then you kind of realize, oh yeah, this is the deal. And it's a really good recap of the things, like very quick, of the things that Eddie has gone into, and the King in Black and stuff. It's basic, but it's good enough to, give everybody some info. And then you get to the deal where he kind of starts, hey, I get this voice in my head and things. But you go from there, because that's when all hell breaks loose, when you end up having this, detective realize what's going on and reveals who he is as well.
Well, it's a slow burn, too, because there is almost like page after page of conversations over tables.
Yeah.
But the thing that uplifts it, I think it's the art. The Jesus Saez's pencils in this are amazing. Mm-hmm. They're very evocative to me of Richard Corbin. Richard Corbin was a big horror illustrator of the 70s and 80s and in the 90s too.
Mm-hmm.
Legendary. He's passed on now, but he's had this very, unique look. Very, I can see it here. Like, oh wow, it's in the texture of like the line weight and the details. There's like when Eddie's sitting down in the interrogation room, still with the two cops, the sergeant and the other guy. There's a mirror in the back, and you can see the reverse, and you can see it's got a really good use of light source. There's great shadow. I mean, shadows and lights. I mean, that's just that's all. It's a big part of cinema.
And
that,
it is.
Yeah,
and it does a good job. I was trying to I wanted to pull up some images from it. I'm telling you, I'm still pretty new in the game of doing things. I ended up with one thing, and I'm like, yeah, that's not really the greatest. I have a bunch of these things, so I will pull it up as we go. But it is the reveal then that it's
a
is
mood.
Indeed
Yeah,
Bushwhack.
I mean, look at page 8, and it's a 3-panel page, and it's just Eddie, being like, "Hello, I'm Detective Chuck Brentwood," and he's like, "No, you're not." And just
that's the best. And again, I really did enjoy it. I really did enjoy the play of this, plot. Like you said, it's just two guys talking, at a desk and doing this stuff. And I thought, boy, it really does it well. It really does it in a way that, kind of impressed me with the way that the art is. And again, I'm not the biggest art guy.
Yeah.
And people can see I'm like trying desperately to put up these things, but I did put one of the things, but it's in a weird way that you don't see much. But the art is really good. The art is really good going out, and then there's a fight. I mean, it has a fight in it. You have the idea even of that airplane. The airplane deal actually reminded me a bit of the Red Hulk that we talked about last month too.
Right,
the deal with the whole bringing it down, and while they were doing that, the whole play was that the FBI's involved. You end up getting Misty Knight even, which I thought was pretty cool.
Well, here's a big being a peripheral Venom fan, I guess, being a lifelong Marvel fan, I've never seen the symbiote used so creatively that in issue 1, Eddie saves everyone, all the passengers of Oceanic Flight 814.
Yeah.
Lost fans, beware! You get that reference, don't you? If you're a Lost fan,
that was kind of funny. It's
you know funny. That.
And this I can understand a little more. That's not a mind bender.
And so, and that's part of the story too, because Eddie has to use Carnage so powerfully to save every passenger. So he's kind of like a Green Lantern look to him. He's using the
actually
ooze.
That's pretty good idea of it. Yeah, he is more of that. It's like the symbiote's more of a construct deal and using
and he saved every passenger.
Yep, yeah,
and he blacks out of exhaustion.
Yeah, and when this happens, they go through the list, the roster of who was on the plane and stuff, but everybody's gone. I mean, when they go, it's one of those where it's a cool, even if you were playing a story here by their point of view, and we didn't know about Eddie, the idea that this plane went down, nobody's there. But there's no survivors. There's nobody. You can't even say survivors.
No victims.
There's nobody. It's just empty, and this was like one of those things. That's almost like one of those crazy, mystical things that you could have on like a Twilight Zone of how did this happen? What happened, or Lost even, and that's why it's cool.
X-Files,
when they do that, or X-Files, it's a really cool play. We know what happened, but it makes it like a cool idea of how they're going about it. So I really did think that was pretty cool, the way that you ended up having that. But as this is going, Eddie is basically just, kind of I'm doing this, and now I'm gonna attack you because I know who you are, and it really is that play of this bushwhacker. He's using this deal of being a detective to get homeless people. He's just doing bad stuff. I mean, it's really bad stuff. But I'm glad it kind of ties into a character that some people may know. It's not just this random guy, and he suddenly you see as he's talking, and he realizes as Eddie's going into the Carnage mode that his shirt's ripping. I'm like, man, that guy's stacked. Like he's like flexing, and things are happening. But he's got that arm cannon. It's like the I don't know. It's like the Cthulhu version of Mega Man. It looks horrific. It's bad. Like David Cronenberg meets Mega Man, and so when you have that going on, they're going to have a big fight. The problem is they're in a public place. This is why I thought that Eddie might have not done the right thing to go to the police station to do this. Maybe find his brother, but I think he didn't want him in his home base or something like that, where he has all these things. But he does say, like, oh, you take homeless people and take them down to your basement and go real wacky on them, don't you? And that's where it's revealed that it is Bushwhacker, and they fight, but he knocks Bushwhacker through the wall, through like the glass of the interrogation room. And this is where you have this full page spread. And again, it is like a body horror type deal with Bushwhackers. All these poor people are just like, hey, what's going on? Like, what's happening? Oh, no, Brentwood. And this poor guy's like, Brentwood, what happened to you? And then he just destroys everybody. He just fires on everybody, probably just to get away, because you're going to have Eddie maybe stop a bit and try to see, but all these people are dead. And here's the cool play. The idea that Brentwood ends up, and a Bushwhacker ends up turning off the surveillance cameras, right? That's good, because you're going to get the real scoop here but it also does a thing where everybody might think that it was just Eddie and the Carnage, the symbiote, and he's even where this is going on. They know who he, as he came in, and he did go and get booked and things like that. So it's another thing just pointing towards Eddie being just this horrific thing where he was trying to stop a guy, but maybe not do it the next time at the police station. But yeah, I liked it. I'm glad that you told me to read it. I'll be putting our review here on our Marvel podcast. I'll be editing it down and put that on there, because it was really good. But before we go, because I don't want to go too far, I want 3 hours or whatever. But yeah,
I just
first off, though, what would you give this as a score?
I give it a 7-9.
Okay, yeah, I'll go 8. I'm a little bit ahead, but it's around that area. I do agree. But you go.
Yeah, well, because it's okay. There's a splash page on page 10, and it's a focus on Carnage itself, and you see it's like liquid tendrils in its pointiness, but inside of the art you see like all of these different gruesome death scenes, eviscerations, suffocations, impalings, decapitations. Okay, this one page blows away most of the interior art in the Red Band editions.
Oh yeah,
and just because the Red Band itself is sold on having a graphic alternative, having like something a bit cooler. Hey, we're gonna not only drop the comics code, kids, we're going to show you some blood and guts, but you're gonna have to pay extra.
Yeah, I don't love those.
And I've seen these. I've said the Blade was such a dud. Werewolf by Night is such a dud. I mean, Elektra Unleash Hell is actually pretty good. Okay. I think it's pretty decent. I think the art in that is wonderful. And Erica Schultz she's got a strong story. I think it's the best I've seen of her. I've seen of her. Oh, cool. Yeah. I mean, I enjoyed that. Yeah. And especially because they're using Muse and Daredevil Born Again Disney Plus show. So you have a Muse enemy against Elektra Daredevil.
Yeah, that's cool. And the Red Band stuff, I remember I was going to do a thing, I think it was for Blood Hunt. I think I was going to do a video of comparing the, here's the regular edition, here is the Red Band edition. And it was like, there'd be like, one scene would be like, okay, we see a couple more dead bodies here. Okay, this one, when you have this death, it's actually a little more gory. Or somebody's hanging in the background. It was really nothing.
There was only one remarkable page out of all like 7 issues.
Yeah.
And it was the issue 1 of Doctor Strange getting eviscerated
and getting,
by
that was
Blade.
The big thing. It was the
and
cutting
that was
him in half. And then what the play was, though, it doesn't really carry over to the next issues, because it's almost like it's like an Elseworlds version of the issue, because they have to come up with other things. And I remember one of the things was there was like 2 extra scenes with vampires killing people. And I mean, I'm talking like it was Johannesburg, and you see this like far off vampire killing. So I'm like, that's what we get?
Lighting on entrails.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
But
that's it.
You're right. The only one was the Doctor Strange being cut in half by Blade.
This page 10 of Jesus Saez and Eddie Brock Carnage #2 here is just amazing. It's the kind of page you can smoke a bowl to and just get lost for about 15 minutes. And what I like
about it, it's one of those things where you'll have serial killers who, like Zaz, Victor Zaz, he puts a mark every time. And then there's even some, you could have a really cool serial killer where, and I'm sure this has happened a million times, that they like tattoo the death scene on, and that's what it's showing you all the bad things. Not all, but the
Yeah.
bad things that Carnage has done in a way that is very serial killer-esque, which works with Carnage. So
It's
you
a
see that
very
through
nice
that.
page.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Geez.
Even if you
It's
go
really
and
gross.
look, this is, you know what it reminds me of too, because what happens and you look at this, and now I think I might be high. You end up where you look and you're going to be drawn to this deal of the the chest and things like that. And I'm going to try. I'm going to desperately try to put this up for the deal. I don't know if it'll work because I'm terrible at this, but you end up when you look at it a little more, and then you look at the head. And you see all these faces in the face of Carnage. It's weirding me out.
In the eyes,
it's looking into my
aren't his
soul.
eyes.
It's
Dude,
really there's
if you
tons
look
of eyes.
closely, that like the guy in the lower right hand quadrant is literally cut in half.
That's what I'm saying. It's when you see it. What I like about it is, as you look, you see more and more as you look at it more and more. And I'm trying to get this.
Women, it's got diversity and representation all in this page. Everyone is equally a victim of Carnage.
Yeah. So hopefully I can get this down and I could get this going so people can see it. But it's really
a good
good
page, man.
Yeah, it is really good. There
check it out.
It is a kind of a single page here, but I did get it to maybe work. I'm telling you, I'm really bad at this. I'm really working on it, but it is a really, really cool page to see, the detail of the art and things and all wacky.
All this, and you get Misty Knight pointing, that's Eddie Brock.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So and Eddie Brock, she comes in. I like Misty Knight. I always like when she comes in, and some people just don't like her, but I think it's that she tends to show up in issues of really bad comics. She ends up where it's going to be, somebody who ends up not being really good and they have to add an extra character. I'm thinking of Alyssa Wong is who I'm talking about. It's basically she had some things where, Misty Knight, and that'll make it cool, but they don't ever have anything for Misty to do except kind of, Misty Knight's badass. That's it. And it gets annoying after a while, but I do really, really like that. But to go back to what we were talking at the very beginning, I think we will just say that I did read Mouse Guard. I thought it was good. I actually liked Mouse Guard and did read a bunch of it back in the day, but I was more of, I said, a Redwall guy. But when I heard that there was a Mouse Guard deal, I thought, boy, I think Sully is one of those guys that would think, boy, this is cute and this is pretty neat. It's medieval mouse type thing. If you don't know what Mouse Guard is, it's very easy to jump into, and this is kind of a side tale where you end up, it's the Black Axe, and you go, and it's classic. So I did like it, but I thought that you might get a kick out of it. But there were a bunch of other indie stuff that I sent you to kind of maybe go through, or at least I send my review copies to Sully so he can read some things. And again, we'll stress it. You said it last week perfectly. The idea when I send you review copies, I do it first off to have you tell me what you thought of them so I can rip off your ideas when I do podcasts. Nice. That's you do the legwork, right? So I do that. But I also really don't mind at all because of the fact that when you do read something that you like, you go buy it. You are one of those that you will, you'll dip your toe into, okay, I don't know about this, but if you have the review copy and read it, you will buy something that you like and support it with crazy variant covers.
I picked up Nick Fury versus Fin Fang Foom, #1 that we reviewed last week. I picked it up this week. I spent $4.99, and I got the Elena Casagrande B cover, a variant cover.
Really?
And I liked it.
I like Casagrande. I really like her. Yeah.
She's got this Tim Sale kind of thing going for her on the cover. It's really nice.
And when we talked about the deal, you even said, like, you like her faces and things like that. But, everybody likes her thing. I really think she's good and ends up doing some of the things I like. One of the few things I like with Kelly Thompson, that Black Widow. I really, really like that. And, Alex in the comments asked if there was ever a genuinely great comic that Misty Knight starred. And I'm just saying, I really don't think so. I'm telling you, she shows up and I'm like, every time she shows up, I'm like, this is awesome. She is so badass. This is great. And then it ends up like just losing to, I'm like, it's not as badass.
Foxy Cleopatra.
Yeah. I love the look. I love
Austin
just
Powers.
The whole thing. And she's so cool. And yet that's the problem, though. Again, when people do yell, and there's a lot of people yelling about a lot of characters, one of them being Miss Marvel that I talk about a lot. It's the idea where people then, and this is the problem, you try to elevate a character in shitty books, and then what people do is they lose track of the idea. I don't like that person writing that. It's just the character. The character gets tainted and it becomes just bad. I hate this, because they're always bad when they show up and they don't take the time to do it. But what other indies did you read this week, Sully?
Ooh, let's see. I picked up on Bug Wars issue 2,
Mhm.
written by Jason Aaron and company, and I didn't read 1.
Really?
And yeah, well, and Wes yesterday was like, I thought you read Bug Wars,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I haven't yet. I haven't till I think it's like I'm getting to it. He was like, oh darn it, because I liked it, and I have no one to talk to
Yep.
about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Me and Wes
And,
talked a bit about it together on the show that I do on his Patreon. And yeah, I liked it. But you go. Did you read the first issue or just jump into
No,
the second?
I didn't. I just jumped in on the second,
First
and I
issue is
thought
really good too.
it just, but it's this for me, the classic strength of a single issue of a comic book resides in its power to get a new reader at every one.
Mhm.
And it had enough expository information, and it was easy to get into, easy to figure out.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed it, and I thought it was like,
Yeah,
oh, what a nice story.
The only it'll just make it, if you read the first issue, it'll just make it even bigger because of the things that you see in that, and then you realize, like, why is Sid from Toy Story here as the brother? That's all I thought right away. But I did really like that first issue, and the second issue is good. I'm going to be talking about that later on our indie podcast. But anything else that you want to point out that was good this week?
Oh yeah, Crush Depth #1 on Mad Cave. That ended up being really entertaining, and I'm glad I got to read it because it's a Mad Cave book, so it's truly indie.
Yeah,
and we should be supporting these. And I liked the art in it. It was very kind of European in a way. Great texture. I love art. I love line art. I love texture. I love hatching, cross hatching, shadowing. And then, because sometimes, like, modern colorists can just muck it up a little bit, especially with light source and stuff.
Oh, yeah. You're reminding me of one of the things that I got made fun of when me and Wes at one point were talking about something, and I said, I like this because the colors are colorful. I meant that they popped. I was like, because when I wanted it, I'm like, yeah, they're colorful colors. And he's like, really? That's your big, that's your hot take? It's like, oh, wow. But yeah, and again, these are books, and I'm actually in this where people can hear the things that you like. I'm actually doing groundwork again. I'm making it because we have to figure out what we're doing on the indie podcast today, and I haven't read everything because I was so busy this week with so many books. But yeah, keep going. Let me know.
Here's another one for you. Everyone out there in TV land, tune in. And who are the Power Pals? #1 on Dark Horse Comics by Dwayne Murray, Ahmed Rafat, and Rob Jones. It is it makes me realize that Brian Bendis and Michael Avon Emming's Powers was 25 years ago or so, and so there's a whole generation grown up reading stuff like Powers. So this Ahmed Rafat's art is very much like Michael Avon Emming's.
The funniest thing, I just pulled up the book, and while you're talking, I was actually going to say it's cool that they got Avon Oeming to do the cover.
It's not the same thing, man.
I'm like, oh, because I thought I was going to go into the book and like, okay, I see that, but boy, they really knew the homage, so they ended up getting Michael Avon, and nope, it does look like that. Yeah,
and it's got a great first page, and it just frames an issue 1 very well. It just, it's a bit of info dump, and it's a bit of in medias res, meaning in the middle of the action. It also evokes the feel of Powers. Powers did a lot with superhero teams through the lens of an old show called Behind the Music that was on VH1. So it was like the expose of the band. Did you know that the lead singer and the guitarist were sleeping together and fighting?
Did you know that the lead singer ended up driving his buddy and got in an accident, and the guy died? I'm like,
the drummer was found in a puddle of vomit, but it wasn't his own vomit.
Though all that said and done, the Behind the Deal and the VH1 deal, the best ever was actually Will Ferrell as Neil Diamond. That was the best.
Oh, wow.
That might have been the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. I like that, but yeah.
He made his career on that movie.
Oh, it was so good. It was so good.
We're given our two protagonists in the first page. It's actually a really interesting 18.
I was going to say, I'm glad you brought it up. I was going to say, everybody, this first page, 18 panel layout. I'm like, holy moly! It's like,
but the 3x3. Yeah, it is, but the three beats here, it kind of reminds me of the three panels you'd usually find in a newspaper daily strip,
Yeah.
and it makes you realize like every one of those newspaper strips in its way was a little 3-act story.
Yeah. Yeah, you had
know?
to tell the story very quickly that
Yeah.
way. And that's, again, maybe that's what's being lost on some of the newer writers that don't, kind of, they just kind of get thrown into comics. And most of them coming from, TV or things like that, that has a different pacing and a different deal because, yeah, you have a season, you're going to tell this and that. I like
Yeah.
comics that give you its own full deal. Like you get done reading a comic and you're like, oh my God, I felt like I got a lot out of that and I want to continue instead of just meandering and then have, oh no, the guy's going to die as a cliffhanger. That's like the only thing, but I'm looking through it. It looks good, but go on.
It's fun book, and it asks the question like, who the fuck are the Power Pals? Well, the Power Pals are these two guys. They were on a pilot of a TV show, of a superhero show 20 years ago, kind of like Electra Woman and Dyna Girl.
That's what
if you remember Sid
I
Marty
remember.
Croft.
Yeah.
And it's just like it only did half a season, and they failed. And 20 years later, they're still trying to find some work in Hollywood, and they get caught up in cosplay scams and like the people that are in front of Man's Chinese Theater, the cosplayers that they'll yell at you if you don't tip them.
Oh, it's the worst. You have so many videos of that, and when you go to Vegas, that you don't realize the scams that they're running.
Yeah.
Just people walking up to you and forcing you into an area and then doing crazy stuff. It's the worst. I did see almost like a legalize it Mickey Mouse.
Yeah, exactly. And it's got like, so it's in a fictional Hollywood, so some of the best parts of the backgrounds, like fake movie posters. I love creative stuff like that. When someone's really good at being clever and just like throws a Lethal Weapon, homage like on a fake movie poster, and you're like, I get that joke.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. I'm going through it. There's even like a Batman, but it's more of like the mouse type deal, and then you have Super Guy. The Superman guy with a mustache, but there's Elmo. They're all there. It's pretty cool. It looks pretty cool. I think that I might use this. I think we might talk about this on the Indie Podcast today.
And me and onomatopoeia. This has hand-drawn onomatopoeia.
Oh my goodness.
It might be digital and drawn on a tablet, yet it's not drag and drop, cut and paste.
Yeah,
it's not. It's drawn by hand. You can tell. You can feel it.
Yeah, it looks good. Anything else? Anything else that you read?
Anything else? What else did I read this week? I read a bunch of comic books, and G.I. Joe #5 was my pick. I mean, I'm getting used to that color palette.
Yeah, that's Gabe's thing. You're getting sus now. It is a different color palette. More people I see are actually bringing that up, which kind of vindicates Gabe. But Gabe goes with that color palette makes the comic unreadable, and I disagree. I think the comic's really good.
Curated thing.
Anyway, I got used to Riley Rossimo's art on that Sandman book. I can get used to anything. So color palette is something that might annoy me at first, but I can get past that if the book's good. And Gabe is like on this like wall he's protecting that he just doesn't want to admit that the book's good. It's weird.
And I will give some good words for Adventure Man Family 3 #1 of 3. It's written by Matt Fraction. It's art by Terry Dodson and his wife and
Mrs. Dodson.
Mrs. Dodson.
I can't remember. Rachel, I think. Is it
Rachel? Yeah. And I'm sorry, Rachel, if you're out there.
I don't think she's out there.
Smash the patriarchy. I'm sorry.
It made me laugh there. I'm like, if Rachel Dodson's like, I could just see this. It cuts to this weird thing where Rachel Dodson's just in her living room and she just suddenly shakes her fist at nothing. She doesn't even know. She's like, your mind melding with her. Damn you, Sully. And they're like,
I'm sorry.
What's going on, Rachel? Nothing.
I love your art. Which you're gonna hate what I have to say next. I hated the last installment of Adventure Man. It was so long since I saw a Matt Fraction floppy, and with the with the Dodsons on art, I thought it couldn't fail, and I didn't like it one bit. It was so progressive, and that's not my cuppa. But hopefully, it's made for that person. But this one is a tighter story. It's easy to get into. It's easy to root for. It was fun, great art, and it's got an A and a B story, and it works very well. It is girl forward, but that is its flavor.
Yeah.
So
and again, we even talk when we talk to Carnage deal, it's Dexter, but that doesn't mean that it's not good. I mean, a lot of things are going to remind you of a lot of things. It's just what they do with it after the fact. You know what I mean? The idea where if it's going to be, Dexter, you got to do something more. And I think that Carnage didn't, that's why I don't mind. And a lot of people, I mentioned this at one point, the idea of, and I think Frank Thierry actually said that when we were talking about, what were we talking about?
We were talking about dead.
Oh yeah, it was Sabretooth, and we talked and we kept saying, "Oh, it's Gangs of New York."
It's Gangs of New York,
and I think I said at one point, like, "Yeah, I hate to say that because then people." And he tweeted us and actually said, "Hey, thanks for the review," and said, "By the way, don't worry about calling it Gangs of New York. That was legit the pitch." He went in and said, "I want to do Sabretooth Gangs of New York." Boom. So he didn't mind that at all. So it was kind of cool with that. So, yeah. So, again, I feel bad sometimes when you end up saying, like, oh, this reminds me of that. I always do feel like, oh, that's kind of an insult because they're going to say, oh, this is my original thing. But some people just go with it, and he did. But keep going.
And there was one last one, too, and no pun last, but it's called The Last Boy. It's written by Dan Panosian, who is mostly, just a brilliant artist.
Yeah.
And so he did a really nice cover. And one thing about Panosian I really like is his faces and his form and figure, especially when he's drawing women. And he reminds me of Milo Manara, who is this insanely
Isn't she married to
awesome...
Ashton Kutcher?
Really? No, that's Mila Kunis. Hello there. What? Hey there.
Thank you.
No, Milo Hey, waka waka. WOKE.
This is the worst. Geez. I'm telling you, I'm the worst. You'll get distracted by me, and now I want to hear what you said. And I ruined it. See,
but The Last Boy. It's written by Dan Panosian, and it's a Peter Pan tale. And I didn't know. Well, Peter Pan must be in the public domain now because it's a full-on Peter Pan versus Captain Hook. But it's a nice wrinkle on the old tale. Peter Pan is in the mood for a new adventure, and he finds out that everyone around him has aged, but he hasn't because he's the eternal boy.
Yeah.
And
he's the last boy.
Yeah, and he's like, but it's kind of like the world's moving on without him.
Which was better, the Last Boy or the Last Boy Scout in your mind?
I think the Last Boy Scout will always have a place in my heart.
So
to Alexander, the astronaut.
Yes, exactly.
If we get out of this, I'll dance a jig.
I love that movie. But anything else? Any other books or whatnot?
Those were
just
the books,
general thoughts, or
New Gods 1 and New Gods 4 was amazing.
You like
I love that stuff. I love
You're
that
one
stuff.
of those guys. That's what you're saying.
I like Ram V for the most part. I like Evan Kegel's art. Bernard Chang.
The art is incredible.
Yeah,
the art is spectacular. I do agree.
Our friend of the show here, Bernard Chang, did the first 3 pages as a flashback. That was really cool.
And I like that he is, Ram V's getting these other artists to do these flashback stuff. But Evan Kegel and the art is great. The problem I have, and again, you're more of an art guy. I really was impressed with Ram V that at the first issue that he didn't get involved in too much lore and ended up going more with the Mr. Miracle story and this baby and the really a cool thing. Again, Orion coming to Mr. Miracle and saying, I'm going to kill the baby. Like a lot of things going on with the babies, Absolute Batman punning babies. Then you have Orion's like, I don't want to kill the baby, but I'm going to kill the baby. And he's like, and he says, I have to. And also a miracle baby in the DC versus Vampires. We got a lot of miracle babies. But you end up where
I feel bad about saying about Big Barda. She's not body positivity Barda. She's Big Barda.
Yeah, Big Barda.
But she just had a baby, you asshole. Come on.
So really wallops Orion. And so here's the thing. When I was reading the issue, last issue kind of threw me off, and I did say it not as bad, but it was almost like for me when you get something with a lot of lore like that, it does remind me of, say, what Philip Kennedy Johnson did in the War World. But what I always go with, it's one of those like a Immortal Hulk number 25, which is the jumping off point for me on anything. That issue drove me nuts. But going and thinking, okay, this is a New Gods book, Ram V. That is a recipe for exposition and craziness. And that first issue, I'm like, man, he's doing it. He's actually centering on Mr. Miracle, Barda, Orion comes down, and I think, all right, I can relate to this and whatnot. This might, and then he kind of is going a little more with the. I get it. I get why he's doing it and all that.
I love Oberon. They just hand the baby off to
Oberon,
and they both gurgle at each other. And
so I want more of that, though. That to me is the A story. We're only getting like 4 pages because we're dealing with other things. So I hope that it gets back to that. And even when you get to the play where you get to the deal and Orion shows up, badass too. And it's like, I'm here.
Dude,
7 days. You're like, really? And then he says,
Really?
"Oh, time's different on
It
New
was
Genesis."
different
I'm
on
like,
New
really?
Genesis.
That's how you're going to play this? Like,
Come
we're gonna push forward with it. I'm like, oh my god. So I did like it, but I didn't like it as much as that. I want to get back to that story, and I'm sure we will. I think it's just 12 issues though, so he tends to meander a bit. But
you
I did
never
like
know.
that.
I mean, Green Arrow got a stay of execution.
Yeah.
Seriously, that's still ongoing. That was supposed to have been what, 6?
Legit. So was Batgirl.
Yeah,
there were a lot of. This
cool.
was kind of a behind the scenes thing that people didn't realize that. And I think it's a smart play. I mean, this is the thing. Too many books go on too long, and you're like, why does this keep going? And they just do it. Hey, we got to do it.
Tried.
And so at 6, if say a Green Arrow, it wasn't. And the problem is, it should have started with a new #1. That would have done it a lot of favors. A lot of people didn't realize it was Chris Condon because they just had. If people had dropped it, they just weren't aware that there was a new person on it. And the story is a little bit. It's got a pacing. It's a little slower pacing, but in the whole play, it's a cool thing that if it isn't selling or doing really bad, then cut it. Don't end up going 20 issues on something that nobody cares about. And this is the thing with DC. They do that a lot. And what I realized this week, because I said Eric, who does the DC stuff, he quit. He didn't want to do it anymore. And we were doing a lot of the books, most of the books.
Enough.
Yeah, he's just had enough.
Maybe it wasn't you. Maybe it was the books.
It was me, I think. He didn't say. Here's the thing, and I will say, like, we ended up where we did the show for 10 years. We never skipped a week, ever. We had the show, never missed a show. And at points, the show was 10 to 13 hours long each week. So I think he just got burned out. But in the whole play of it, though, what I realized, especially this week, there were so many DC books that I ended up like, I got to scramble. I mean, hey, who reads this? Who's doing this? This week, I think our podcast was almost 6 hours long because there was like 9 people on it. So we end up going and I realized not many people are reading some of these books. And the books that I thought, oh, man, we're talking about them every month, and yet nobody's reading them.
Yeah.
And it's because people have bailed.
I felt bad.
Yeah.
When you asked me, like, hey, what DC books are you reading? And I'm like, to be honest with you, Jim, I'm only reading really the books I buy. And I am buying 5. I think I'm buying 5 DC books. I have 5 DC books on my pull list. Yeah. That's a lot. I only have 2 or 3 Marvel books, if anything. Yeah, I got all. And
Barlord has said in the chat that Ramsey has said that you have that Ramsey said again, if New God sells, and I like this idea. If New Gods is 12 issues. If it's selling, keep it going. And the sales, what little sales you can get, it looks like it is. I'm just afraid New God's not a great selling thing anyway, usually. So maybe he gets a little bit of a reprieve that it's like, well, we expect this much. I think that you would have to do that, right? You go into a book and you say. You're not going to get a book that's like the Atom Project. It's not going to sell great, but maybe it sells better than you thought. That book stinks in my mind.
They'll collect better too.
Yeah, and then
if he can tell 5 years worth of New God stories and do something with it and return the action figures back to the box when he's done, but in the meantime, because he's got that kind of poetic vision,
he does.
And whimsy and mythology, that he can pull off New Gods.
Yeah, it feels like the idea, and he has. If people aren't aware, Resurrection Man is coming up too.
Yeah, I'm interested in that.
And I did get an advance copy. I'll send it to you and see what you thought about it. Maybe that's something.
I'll buy it if it's good.
Maybe that's something that me and you could actually talk about on the DC
I'll put it on my pull list
because it's #1, so we could do that.
Because Hellblazer, Dead in America wrapped up, so I have room for that Black Label.
Yeah, exactly. That nonsense book. People love that book. I'm telling you, and it came back. It actually did kind of stop and then came back because there was a bit of support for it. So, but what I like about the deal, and I did go on it as a negative thing of saying, hey, I like the idea that they get, hey, this is 6 if it sells, and I go, oh, if it stinks, then cut it. But also that is maybe some incentive to write a good book. Like the idea that you're there and you're like, okay, I got 6, but I need to tell a really kick-ass story to
Yeah.
make this continue. And what also it does is something that you end up, it's near and dear to your heart, Sully. The idea that you might have to be nice on social media as well. It ends up where, in my mind, if they're doing this a lot, because even then, Barlord's saying that Ram V mentions this. Chris Condon says with the Green Arrow, and I said I forget who it is, Tate Brommel actually said it about the Batgirl. So when you have that, it's starting to be almost the model of the manga deal. Like you have Shonen Jump. If your shit isn't hitting, you're done. And you may never get another chance because there is a long line behind you. I like that. I like some fire under these assholes. The idea,
competition fuels creativity
and make it
and
so
innovation.
that you have to, you can no longer say, well, I have this idea. It's really would be a 6-issue story. I think I'm going to stretch it to 30. You can't do that if it's going to be canceled, if it's not good at 6. So I'm good. I'm down with that. I'm down with that. I like that. And it also gives you the idea that you have to have a kind of ending to that first arc too. So it seems a contained thing. And I'm like, I like that. And there you go. Fearmonic said that it might be a thing with Satana. That actually feels a little different, but I could go with it. That book, there's some weird books this week, but there's some good ones. And the absolute
Are you liking
stuff,
Jamal Campbell's writing?
I know. I tell you, I think he's a great artist, and as a writer, he's a great artist. Is what I say because it's not.
Mr. Campbell, we respect your trade. We like you.
The art's great. I even said I'm not an art guy, but you could buy that book just for the art. But that story was convoluted as all hell. But it still might sell because of the art and things like that. But
well, I almost bought the Far Sector compact, but it was what really pulled me out of it was the coloring and the lettering.
Oh, you didn't like that? I like that story. I actually like the story. The problem I have, and when people got all upset about Joe Mullins, the thing that I got mad is I liked her being just that separate thing. I really liked the idea that it was separate and it was cool and it was different. And it was like,
it was outer
how did she
spacey.
get this? And that far, sector, obviously, way out. And then when they just ended up, she just became, oh, you're just forcing another Earth Lantern in, and it just, I didn't love that, but I do like the character and I like that series a lot. It's just not again, it's the idea of forcing a character into something. And
it's story over art too, or story.
Story over.
I love Jamal Campbell's line work. Yeah. It's like sometimes that's the over reliance on digital assistants really sometimes pulls me off the page.
Yeah, I remember. I think it was like one of the first couple issues. I believe it was Naomi. The art, and everybody was going on and on. I'm like, I don't know. There's just something in it. It might be the digital. It's just something that makes it feel too sterile a lot of times for me. Yeah, and I end up like, okay, but it works. And again, I think I even brought you up when we reviewed it somewhere that I did because, boy, it's Zatanna. So you're going to get a lot of purples. You're going to get a lot of like that. And when This Week in Titans, you're going to get a lot of that with Raven as well. So that, but it goes over the top.
I mentioned it earlier. It's about, for me, a lot of art has to do with light source, light quality, and shadows in light. And with the digital assistances,
it doesn't seem natural, right?
It doesn't, because it's all, it
looks like an anime. It looks like something like, which is fine, but it's not what I like. I'll tell you.
I mean, it's impressive though. I'm not gonna. No way am I, Mr. Campbell. Am I knocking your trade?
No,
you're a really great artist, but it's just not. But the end result is usually never my cup of tea, though.
Yeah. So one of the guys that I think about when you say this and things like that is Michael Janin, where he really had like a slick digital style. And again, we're saying this, I don't know exactly how he did things. If he used assists, if he did this, he's an artist. He's doing the art.
They all get scanned and then it becomes digital on top of that.
The idea where it ended up being very like static. Everything looked like you were looking at like action figure. And then in the detective run he's doing now, it has changed. He actually, it's a little more gritty. And I'll give it that. I think he's like, well, this is Batman detective. It's a street. But I like the style. I like the style. And his art actually got elevated for me. And I was like, holy crap, like this looks really good. It almost gets to the point where I'm like, it's getting closer to like a Dan Mora. It's not there.
And this is Tom Taylor's work?
Yeah,
too?
It's the Tom Taylor Detective Comics, which another guy who I thought had turned the corner. I like Tom Taylor, but some of the things he did in Nightwing, we talked about it earlier, being our favorite. He did nothing on that book. It just meandered. It was like just the idea. you pick up an issue. It's great if you haven't read Nightwing or Dick Grayson that you could pick up an issue and say, man, what this told me was he was a great guy. But when you've been reading it all the time, you need more, right? That's all it was.
It kind of made me realize there's only so much Bruno Redondo I need in my life.
Yeah,
it's great
Bruno,
stuff.
But yeah, he does the weird thing, and also Fear Monarch wants more Gritty.
Oh my God,
Gritty. I love Gritty. Oh my goodness. But so all that going down. Yeah, I think that, maybe you should check out. Maybe I'll send you some review copies of some of the more DC stuff because, again,
I would love it.
There is
Mitchell Shelley's
really
an
good
old friend
stuff.
of mine.
Yeah, there's some good stuff at DC. There's just also, it's like, I think that the play, and I said it at one point, Marvel's like one of those where you go and there's like, it's either, oh my God, this is really good, or holy crap, this is bad. And recently it's been the latter. Oh my God, I went through it. It's the worst when you review comics and you get the company's review copies and you go and you look at the file and you're like, okay, what are we going to talk about? And you're like, I have to figure this out. Like, you actually have to go and like really think, like, what are we going to do this week? Oh my goodness. And then we ended up, me and Matt, who do the podcast with me, we only did One World Under Doom and we hated it. So I hate to just have that. That's why I'm glad that you wanted to talk about Carnage, because it's good. And you also like Ultimate Black Panther.
Deadpool Wolverine 3 was good.
Yeah.
I liked that. That was so fun. It was over the top. It was bloody, gory nonsense. It was, it's just like, it's like loud, heavy metal music.
Yeah. And the funny thing is Ben Percy, he does it. I have a thing with Jason, the one guy who does the X-Men stuff and whatever. And he thinks that he's like, Ben Percy, that guy has a great sense of humor. I'm like, I don't think he does. I think that he, and when you said the heavy metal deal, I think that what Jason thinks is like, oh man, that's kind of a funny little over the top thing. That I'm like, no. I think that he's turning it up to 11 here, and he thinks this is cool as shit. And so that because I've never seen the guy smile. I've seen pictures of the guy. I don't think if he smiled, his face would crack. But the problem I have with the Deadpool Wolverine is if you would say to me, did you read Deadpool Wolverine? Whether or not this makes total sense, I would say, which one? Because I think there's like 50 of them. There's so many of these Wolverine teaming up with everybody, and Deadpool, especially because of the movie, that I can't keep track of them anymore. So I end up like, whatever. And I go and read it after the fact. But I did read the first issue. I haven't read the second one yet, so maybe
the Joshua Cassara work is the artwork's really good. Yeah, it's fun.
So, and with all that, I'm trying to think anything else that I read from Marvel. I don't think I really did. The Ultimate Black Panther you liked. I almost said we would talk about that.
It's consistent, man, and then we have an art change, so it's the first without Stefano Caselli, and it's 14 issues, so he went a whole year and more. It's really fun. I mean, it's typical.
Did you read the Absolute Flash?
I didn't, because the preview stuff bored me.
Yeah. It's a different way of it. Starts a little slow. It's funny to say it's a Flash book and it starts slow. I think I said that when me and Gray talk, but it's weird too, because you're so used to when it comes out the same week as Absolute Batman is punting a baby into the ocean, that you end up like you want it to really kick in, but it's a little slower developing, and you have kind of an intriguing thing at the end. I liked it. I think you should check it out, but it is more of those, like, if somebody said, hey, should I read it? It might be one to wait a couple issues, and then, as it picks up. But Absolute Batman was pretty good this week. It cracked me up. I was laughing so much of that baby. Getting on it, and just the idea of Batman, and I mean, Scott Snyder's embracing the idea that people are saying, oh man, Batman wouldn't do this, and I think that he's sitting there and saying, okay, what is the final line that Batman won't cross, and we're going to go right up to that line, and we're going to do like Black Master's getting beat up by bowling balls. He stabs him right through the face. I was like, holy crap. But that was really good. And I said it earlier, I do suggest, if you have any sort of interest in maybe having fun or loving life, or what, read the Sonic DC book. It's really good. It is more of a Sonic book than a DC book. It actually is written by the guy who does the Sonic stuff and has done it for a real long time. So you can see that it's not one of those just like a character, a writer gets thrown in, doesn't know either property, and it's just going to have the deal. It is really, really good. It is what it is. It's a Sonic book. But even the guy I did the review with, Simon, he was a little drunk. He's from London. he ends up, because of the time difference, I end up talking to him about books on Thursday night after he comes back from the pub. But when we were talking about the deal of it, he's a big Sonic comic fan. He said it really, Sonic books have a way to go. You have a picnic, somebody attacks, you do this, and it does it exactly like that. But it's really cool and it's really good. And there's a Batman moment in it with the character Shadow that is a really good Batman moment, that he realizes that Shadow had some, death in the past and things. So
don't Sonic funny books sell?
Yeah, I think that they're pretty good. Yeah, it's when they keep going on, and that's the amazing thing. Again, talking with you going in the aficionados this week, in the comments, because you guys were talking a lot about Mary Jane and Peter being a couple, and why people want it, and then some people were arguing, well, younger kids don't really want that, but are younger kids reading it? And that whole play of, it's not, some of the big two, they're not pushing to have anything for kids, and everybody wants to be gritty, which is fine, or they want to have these like really mind-bending stories, but
they're really not for kids.
The industry needs to have something, right? They have to, because if they don't, what they do is read Dogman and manga, which they are, and maybe kind of combine the two and have something. The Sonic is pretty good. It's my book of the week on our DC show that had 10 books. So it was really, really good. It was really fun. So yeah, Fear Monarch even said IDW Sonic just had its 77th issue. And here's where I know that Sonic is a winner. I ended up reading it. I haven't played Sonic in quite some time. I said I never watched the cartoon. I never saw any of the movies. But now I want to. But with Fear Monarch saying, this issue came out, I didn't even realize, but I was going through some of the things. Hey, what would me and Sully say? Oh, there's a Sonic. I actually thought, I think I'm going to check it out. I think I'm going to read just issue 77 to just see how it is, because I really did enjoy that crossover. And that's, again, crossovers, that's kind of the point, right? You cross it over with the Justice League to get people who are DC fans to go, man, the Sonic thing is pretty cool. I'd go with it.
It's a publishing stunt.
Yeah.
To be honest, it's tough.
And why can't the big two get that when they have an event? You cross over to get little or known books, but they barely tie in or they suck.
Right. Yeah. Like, hey, Web of Spider-Man needs a push.
Yeah.
Well, let's have a crossover.
The funniest thing, the building crossover at DC was always Batman. Put Batman on the cover. I love the idea. Before it was like, just put a gorilla on the cover, apes on the cover, sell, and they're in space, and
gorillas riding dinosaurs.
Yeah. Fear Monarch. Yeah, exactly. You have Fear Monarch said that Sonic Boom cartoon is pretty great. So yeah, I suddenly got more interested in Sonic again that I haven't really thought of in a long, long time, because again, I used to play tons of video games. Back in the day, I got the Genesis and it had the pack-in Sonic, but I got NHL 92. That was my jam. For the longest time, I had a Genesis, and all I got were the NHL games every year. They were so great.
Paycheck from my first job in the first restaurant right after high school, I went to FAO Schwartz and bought a Sega Genesis and NHL PA 93.
It's the greatest, right? And what I did, because my buddy got it, and I thought, holy shit, this is like the hockey game I
for Christmas.
Yeah. I'm telling you, the hockey. Every year I would just get the NHL deal because it was so good. It was so much, like from Blades of Steel to that. Holy moly, it was like walking on the moon.
Yeah,
like holy, the things are possible. I love that so much.
EA Sports.
Oh, it's the greatest.
It's in your shorts.
Oh, it's so great. It's in your underwear. But you have Fear Monarch said the turbo bit graphics deal.
Every time I hear No One Knows by Queens of the Stone Age, my first thought is to NHL 2000. Was it NHL 2000?
That was one of the deals. And
I was a yearly customer for like half my life.
That turbo graphics, my buddy. It's funny when you have a bunch of friends and then you end up where everybody like, oh, you have the Genesis, so I'll get this. And then somebody gets stuck with the bull crap. I'm not saying the turbo graphics.
I got ColecoVision.
I remember at the point I ended up getting, instead of getting a Nintendo, I got the Sega Master System before the Genesis.
Oh, boy.
It wasn't great. I was a little disappointed. Now I look back and there are some cool games, but I wasn't really big on them.
I was a smart kid, so something had to have educational value to it.
Oh, my goodness.
So my mom wouldn't let me have an Atari 20. Yeah, my mom wouldn't let me have the Atari 2600, so I got the Atari 800 XL instead, and which ended up being really cool because I learned a little bit of BASIC but Star Raiders.
Yep,
and
I
having
played a
a
lot of it.
QWERTY for Star Raiders it was so cool.
And my buddy
And
was a big Atari guy, so he had all the 400, 800. He went on and on
uh-huh.
with those. And we had a guy that lived in our neighborhood that worked for IBM. My dad worked for IBM as well, but he wasn't in the computer stuff. This guy was. And he had like these discs because my dad knew him. And then this guy
Uh-huh.
heard, oh, you got that. And he had these discs of just game galore. They were like, ripped games or like, homebrew stuff and things like that. So we had like
Yeah.
tons. It was so good. It was so fun. But yeah, we played a lot of that. But he was big on the computing side of it. He with the basic. All I would do is write like, line 10. Right, Jim is a great guy and he has a big penis. And then
I would actually make the big penis in AC.
you see, I wasn't that good. I would just then line 20, go to line 10. So I just repeat on the screen. That's all it was.
80, go
Infinite
to
loop.
line 10, go to
Jim has a big penis.
run.
And then I'd yell, yeah, and I'd yell, Pete, look, the computer's really smart. It knows everything. And then we'd have that. Also, he had a voice deal. It was called Sam. And you type in things and it says, crazy shit and stuff like that. So we would just insult each other through the voice synthesizer. That was good. And then he got a strip poker game that our one buddy Phil would have us leave the room. And again, this, how the graphic, this was, the graphic deal. It wasn't great. This guy would have to have alone time with the strip poker. It was ridiculous. And I'm like, Phil, really? And we'd have to leave because it would start out and goes, I'm Juicy Lucy, and you caught me playing with myself. And I'm like, he's done, man. He's like, oh my goodness, the computer age. But we'll get out of here. I didn't plan on going this long.
My bladder's about to explode.
You said that last time, and I really thought I would want to keep this at like 45 minutes, but we started talking nonsense. So with all that, instead,
that's cool.
Mark Jager said in the chat, because Sully can't see the chat.
I can't see the chat. I'm so sorry, everyone.
Mark Jager said that Star Raiders was a blast in the days of black and white computer games, and Star Raiders was really good. That got me. You ever play, just as an aside, do you ever play the Sword Quest games? Do you remember those? They were the fantasy like D&D type adventure games, but they had like a bunch of them, and it was supposed to be this big thing that they connected, and you could win prizes. It all kind of fell apart. I thought they were really
always
cool.
into sci-fi
Yeah,
games.
you like
I grew up in the projects, so I didn't grow up in the Shire.
Yeah,
so it was like growing up on the Death Star.
South Boston. I don't know what the hell. Yeah, really,
And
it is the Death Star.
Dude.
It's trouble. So, but yeah, it's cool. But yeah, I bet you wouldn't take it back for anything except maybe being filthy rich. That'd be pretty.
That
cool.
too. That money.
That'd
helps,
be pretty.
Trust
good.
me.
Yeah, it does. So with that though, thanks for joining me, Sully. As
Thank
always,
you so much. It's been fun.
I am gonna play a song out of this that could get us in trouble. With Sully, we're gonna do a remix version. We were practicing before, but this is the whole play of the Batman AF, the whole thing of the Absolute Batman. This was something that I was desperate for a song for a podcast. We like to have songs between the books, and it has to kind of go with it. Though we weren't talking about Absolute Batman, it was to lead into a Batman Detective Comics book, but I ended up doing it. I thought Sully would get a kick out of it. I hope people like it. Thanks, everybody, though, for joining us. Matthew Price just said finally was able to catch us live. And yeah, we're going to do, I just said maybe I want to tighten it up a bit. And I ask Sully each week. It's not the idea that I have him chained to the desk. So if he wants to keep going with it, but a couple other people said that they would join in as well. But maybe we'll, adjust the time, or I'll talk to you about making it a little more doable and things like that. I just like talking to you because,
our way there.
Yeah, it's weird too, is I talk to you after I've reviewed and read most of the things. And I usually need the pick-me-up that you and Gray give me before, but it's nice to have an ending where, while I talked about a lot of bad books this week, and every week, there's some good ones. You can always find something.
There are some good ones. Yes.
It's the idea that some people even say to me, like, oh man, like there's only like 12 good books, right? And I'm like, who has 12 books on their pull list? Like that's enough to get somebody like, if you like 5 books,
I buy 14 books all month.
Yeah, exactly. So the whole play of it, there are these good ones to read, and I do like talking to you and Gray. You're the two more positive people that I talk to that do like to kind of spin a positive little light on the things which I do enjoy. And I'm kind of, I don't know, people have said since Eric left, not that it was him, but I'm actually like in a better mood, they said. So maybe it is. Maybe it's just talking to more people and having fun with it. But thanks for joining me as always, Sully. Thanks, everybody.
You're most welcome. Thank you for everyone that's tuned in.
Yeah.
And make sure you subscribe to Weird Science. right here. So you can subscribe to my channel.
I want you to put that. I was just going to say, tell them where they can find you. It's more important.
You can find me at my own channel. It's my name, Eric O'Sullivan. I am the Reverend Sully, ordained on the internet. I am your evangelist of pop culture and comic books. Who needs to quote the Bible when you can quote Watchmen?
That is true. Isn't that the Bible?
You know, you get more cultural relevance that way. Exactly. So, yeah, I also do cooking videos. I do inspirationals about using gratitude in your life. Hence the positivity. It just comes from within, because I use gratitude. I use a gratitude list. I focus on what's good, and I don't focus on what sucks.
Which is
great. You know, because garbage in, garbage out, or wonderful in, wonderful out. You know,
exactly. I thought you were talking about my diet. That's what I thought you were talking about. This week, though, I did make a beef and sweet potato casserole. Pretty good. Ooh, it was pretty good. It was very tasty. Very tasty. But
I got steak tonight.
Yeah. And Barlord actually said subscribing is the only reason he knew that we even went live. And that is a thing. I mean, if you do, you get the
I'm on
the thing.
I'm on the march. For anyone that's tuning in later, I'm on the march to break 2,000 subscribers.
Yeah, awesome.
This calendar year. And I can't do it without your help.
You'll do it.
So tune in and subscribe and enjoy the content. I'll be on today, 3 p.m. U.S. Eastern at my own show. It's my weekly, the Super Sully Sunday stream.
Yeah, and that's every Sunday at 3. And with this show, we just ended up starting this last week.
Yeah, we're fucking around. We're having a good time.
We're having a good time. So the time may change, whatever, but if you're subscribed, it's good. But I do want to mention, of course, because I have to, the idea that I had a song on the Sus Records deal this week that actually is getting close to like 300,000 views. So what I want to say is that comics are nonsense. You have to do the dirty songs to get the thing going. But with all that, thanks again, Sully. Thanks, everybody in the chat, listening and watching and all that. And we will talk to you all later.
Bye.
Nobody knows just how you feel. Your head's still filled with all those squeals. Surrounded by friends who don't know your face. Party animals don't know their place. Who else could you possibly be when you kick that baby into the sea? You're Batman as fuck, crashing out of buildings in your bad dump truck.